This is the video where romance meets market efficiency. You're welcome. I calculated the maths of your love life so you don't have to. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melody if you're new here. So in today's video, we're gonna be talking about the economics of love, which is super random, but I am an economics student and I think it's really interesting to link econ theory to like random things in the world. So that's what we're gonna be doing in this episode. I'm gonna be talking about love. Don't worry if you don't know anything about economics, it's gonna be pretty easy to follow through and hopefully you'll learn a thing or two about econ and love. I decided to wear red to go with the whole theme. Got a red bracelet on as well. But yeah, let's start. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start off with, seeing as we're in the month of February and Valentine's Day is just gone, I'm going to set up a game theory for Valentine's Day. So game theory is all about making decisions based on what you think other people are going to do. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a simple matrix. Here's person one, and he has two choices, or she has two choices, right? They could buy or not buy. This being a present for Valentine's Day. And then we have person two, buy, not buy. Let's make this a little bit clearer. Person two. Excuse my writing. So, okay, let's say that if person one decides to buy, right, but person two decides not to buy, so person two is going to be left with 0 and person one will be left with -7. So person one has spent X amount on the gift, but because person two didn't give them anything, they're left feeling like -7, and person two is neutral because they didn't spend money, nothing happened, right? So they're at 0. If it's the other way around and person two buys and person one doesn't buy, -7, 0. So just the flip side. Then if they both decide to buy, even though, let's say, buying the gift would put you down -7, because they also got your gift, we're basically going to say -5, if you're in the buy. But then if you both decide not to buy anything, you're both basically where you were originally, so just call that 0, 0. So if you have these options, right, game theory basically tells you what you're going to decide based on what you think the other person is going to do. So for example, if person two thinks that person one is going to buy them a present, they have an option but in this column here to either buy or not buy. So they're left with -5 or 0. So they're going to go with 0 because 0 is greater than -5. So they're going to be here. So if they think person one is not going to buy, they're left with either buy, which would give them -7, or not buy, which would give them 0. And obviously 0 is greater than -7, so they would be here. And then if we flip it around, so person one, if person one thinks that person two is going to buy, they're on this row, so they have -5 or 0. Obviously 0 is greater than -5, so they go for 0. And then if they think person two is not going to buy, again they're left with the same options of buy or not buy, and again 0 is greater than -7, so they're here. Okay, so the economic theory would tell us that this position here, not buy, would be the best option for all of them because it's basically the highest value of utility that they can get. However, in real life, what we actually go for is here. Why? Capitalism. Well, it might be because of capitalism, but behavioral economics tells us about herd behavior, which is just all about the fact that as humans, we tend to do things that other people are doing just because other people are doing it. Obviously, in that game theory matrix, we were focusing more on the like monetary, financial contributions or losses engaged in getting a gift for Valentine's Day, but also we know that there are many other factors, but we're just gonna keep it simple because economics does that a lot. We just break things down to the barest minimum just so we can understand the model better. But we're gonna keep it simple and focus on money. So if, as I've said with behavioral economics, we sort of are going for an option that might be less optimal than what we could do, how can we combat that? Economics can help with that too. So let's go a little bit further. As an economist, we stand by price. We totally believe that the price is one of the best signals that we can get. So, you know, at the basic level, if it costs more, it's worth more. So if we look at the efficient market hypothesis, which is basically a fancy way of saying the price reflects what something is worth. So obviously Valentine's Day has become something that's pretty important like in society and really important for some relationships. It's like a key day in relationships, right? So if we extend that a little bit and say that, you know, if you didn't sort of participate in Valentine's Day the way that the other person wanted you to, that could be make or break, right? So then if you decide to get them a gift that's maybe not particularly expensive, and using the efficient market hypothesis, we could say that, you know, that's the intrinsic value, that's the worth that you put on, you know, Valentine's Day or engaging in that day, or even potentially keeping that relationship. So, you know, if we think that getting them a gift in a really important day in your relationship is a make or break, then you getting them a gift that is a certain price sort of indicates the worth that you have attributed to keeping that relationship. So the price that you spend on a gift could be a signal of how much you want to keep the relationship, right? Or how much you love that person. But before you go and spend all your savings and loans trying to get a better present, don't worry, economics is here to help. Yet again. So there is a theory in behavioral economics known as the IKEA effect. So at the surface, the IKEA effect says that there can be value added to something that you've purchased when you are sort of inputting your labor into it. So even if something cost £5, and based on the efficient market hypothesis, that means you value it as £5. If you spend time building it or spend time putting some sort of time and effort into that, the value to you actually increases. So merging those three theories together, if you really want them to appreciate your gift, maybe you consider adding an element where they add some time or labor into that gift. So maybe something that you guys can build together or something. Little disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by IKEA, so don't go out and get your girlfriends or boyfriends desks to set up. That's not what I'm saying. The concept that I wanted to highlight is known as the price elasticity of demand. So this is basically how much your demand for a product, how much you want something, changes with the price. So for example, you might want a sandwich when it's £5, but you probably don't want a sandwich when it's £10, right? So how much you want it has changed because of the price. So if we call the relationship the product, so the price elasticity of demand would be how much your demand for the relationship, so how much you want to be there, still want to be part of it, varies with the price. So let's call the price maybe how much you financially spend on it or how much in time that you spend on it. So I think it's fair to say that the price elasticity of demand for the relationship is probably quite elastic at the start, but then as time goes on and you've both invested more into the relationship, it will probably become less elastic. Which actually brings me on to another economic theory, which is known as sunk costs. So this is usually related to businesses. So when they've, you know, maybe bought a factory or they spent a lot of time and money into something already and you can't really recover that back. So the time and everything that you're spending in this relationship, yes, that is a sunk cost. You can't really get that back, but really that cost could be decreasing the elasticity of your relationship and actually helping it to last longer. So note. So yet again, economics is here to help you keep your relationship. Okay, so let's talk about asymmetries of information. So this is quite an important one and quite relevant to relationships and love in general. So let's illustrate this with an example. So you have yourself and a car dealer and you're going to buy a car. So, you know, you're going in and you've heard, oh, it's a Mercedes, it costs this much, right? And, you know, you have the mileage and all that information. There could be other bits of information that the car dealer knows that you don't know. So because of that, they know a little bit more than you. So the information isn't like symmetric, there's asymmetries, right? So relating that to relationships, obviously both individuals know more about themselves than they do about other people. And when it comes to, you know, sharing information about yourselves, there's obviously things that the person isn't going to share with you. So automatically there exist asymmetries. So concepts like catfishing are basically asymmetries of information. So econ tells us that the talking stage is not really about trying to get to know them better, it's about reducing asymmetries. And I guess with love and long-term relationships, it's a continual process of reducing these asymmetries of information, and you probably never really completely have a completely symmetric information of the other person, but there is clearly a threshold of information that we're happy to accept. So I think that's really interesting because economics basically assumes that we have all information, which is what allows us to make the exchange in the first place. So, but clearly we're seeing that if we look at the example of relationships, you're more than happy to get into that exchange, that contract, without knowing everything. So maybe there's like a threshold of information that you're willing to still enter that contract. I think that's interesting. You know, when people ask like, what is your love language? I feel like an economist would be like, efficiency. Maximize surplus. The next concept I want to introduce is search theory. Now this concept is typically used for labor economics or unemployment, but I think we can find a link here. This entire video is just me finding tentative links between the few economic theory that I know and the even less that I know about love, so don't read too much into it. So search theory basically talks about the mismatch or the unemployment that can occur when someone is looking for a job and when an employer is looking for a suitable candidate. And one of the key concepts in that theory is the matching function, which is basically the speed at which you can find an ideal candidate and that candidate can find you. And obviously something that can speed that matching along is to advertise and make sure that, you know, the right people are seeing your vacancy, right? So you can reduce the duration of the search by advertising more and more efficiently. And if we're talking about relationships, then you could speed up this matching function by making yourself more visible, putting yourself out there a little bit more. And something that's quite interesting and that's been like a growing field of research in search theory is how the internet is helping to reduce the duration of that search. Obviously, you know that with job recruitment, you have so many websites now that helps people from a larger geographic base to find that job, right? So I think it's fair to say that in the same way, the internet can help in that whole matching process for a relationship as well. And in the same way that you may be called for an interview but may not be successful in getting that job because, you know, you're not the right fit, you can also, you know, go on a date and find that you don't get along so much. So yeah, search theory can actually be very closely linked to love. Labor economics, more like love economics. So I want to end with quite a basic economic concept, which is utility maximization. So utility is all about the happiness, satisfaction, contentment that you get from getting a product or a service or something like that. So in economics, we sort of assume that everyone is out to maximize their utility. So, you know, be as happy as possible from doing things, right? And we also assume that everyone has all the information that they need to make a decision. So, you know, having all the information, you pick the option that makes you the happiest, the most satisfied, right? And now here's the tea, because bearing that in mind, economics would basically say that whoever you're with is the best you can do, because, you know, you've had all the information, you've looked around, and then you've made your decision, you chose the product, the relationship, right? And that is what maximizes your utility, your satisfaction. So, you know, take that as you will. And with that, that is the end of the video. Let me know if you like this style of video, because economics is honestly like the most versatile subject, so it could go with anything. Bear in mind that these theories, I stayed very much on the surface level, and this wouldn't necessarily be the answer that we would stop at as economists. Economics is all about trying to understand how people make decisions and how we sort of go about life. The subject is always evolving and just changing certain aspects, so don't take everything in this video too literally. Don't forget to like and check out my other videos and subscribe if you'd like to join the family, and I will see you all in the next one.